So this screen that you can see here is the Concur login screen. And the one thing about Concur is that it's a web-based application. So you can access it from anywhere you have an internet connection. You could be in the office, you could be at home, you can be sitting in the airport. It doesn't matter. You can access it just opening any browser window. In the URL field, you're going to type in www.concursolutions.com, and you'll see the login screen. Now, to access the system, you need to enter a username and a password, as you can see here. And your username is going to be your work email address. And today, I am username William Never, and you can see altertrading.com is my username. And I will be given a temporary password to access the system for the very first time. And that password is going to be the word welcome, all lowercase letters. Now, log in for the first time. The system is going to take you to a change password screen. You will have to change that password. Everybody has to create their own new, unique password. Now, before I log in here, I want to point something out. A lot of people have several different passwords for whatever reason. They'll have one for Concur, they'll have one maybe for their online banking, or other websites that they may access. Sometimes they all have different passwords. You get your Concur password. Not most of the time, but a lot of times people, they have to think they remember their password and they type it in here, and then it might say password's incorrect, and they keep trying to type it in here until they get it right. Well, 5 incorrect attempts, you can lock out your Concur account. So that from happening, use the here that says forgot your password. What we'll do is I'll actually show you what the screen looks like. Password, you have two options. You can system to send you an email with your password hint, because to create your new password, you're going to create a hint as well. Or send you an email that has a link, and that will take you to a page that will allow you to completely reset your password. So instead of trying to type your password in and remember it that way. Here. And I changed my password for this user, so I'm going to manually go to the change password screen, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. Here's the change password screen. Company requirements for your new password will be listed up here where I've highlighted. And all you need to do is type in the old or temporary password of welcome, create your password and enter it once, and in time to verify it, and then give yourself a password hint in case you ever forget your password. And then just click the submit button, and that's all you need to update your password. Here to this Concur tab, you notice we have some tabs across the top. I do want to point out something. Currently, your company is not using the Concur travel tool, so you will not see this tab that says travel here. You also won't see this area here that says trip search. All of these sections will not be appearing currently when you log in. So I wanted to point that out in case you wonder why my screen has a few features yours doesn't. So on the main screen here, though, we do have some other sections that will apply to you. Talk about those. First one we're going to talk about is the expense report section. So you're going to have a section where expense reports will be sitting, and you can check them from here. Now, this is going to have all of your active expense reports. Expense report is any report that you have not yet been reimbursed for. The thing is, from here, you track the status of the report. You can see where it is in the approval process. You can see if it's for payment to be sent. So you track that status from here. And if you have a report in this section, all you do is open that report is click on the name of it. It'll open up, and you can view the report. If you need to continue adding expenses to it, you can do that. Nice to.
Hey, it's Sandy just getting on, but I didn't know it was going to take 10 minutes for this thing to load up for crying out loud.
Expense report section, and scroll down here. We're going to come to a section that's called available card charges. Those of you that have a card assigned to you, you're going to use that for all your business-related expenses. those be travel related. If you take a business trip, you might have air, car rental, hotel, some meals while you're traveling. Those of you that might not travel, you might have things like office supplies would be a good example of an expense type where you might purchase things like printer paper, printer toner, maybe a printer for an office, and things of that nature. But as long as it's a business-related expense, you should use that corporate card. And what Concur will do is it will upload all of your credit card transactions into the system here, into your profile. The thing about that is, one, it only takes 2 to 3 business days for those transactions to appear in the system. So you don't wait for your corporate card statement to come out to be able to start reconciling your expenses. 2, our details are going to contain the vendor name, this transaction took place, the date transaction, and the transaction. Information will already be pre-populated on your expense report when these transactions to a report that you create. So it'll save you some time, and it'll be less data that you actually have to manually enter into the system. And we'll have an example of adding these card charges to a report to show how that works. We have a section down here called the Approval Queue. This is only for those people that will be approving expense reports. You have this section listed here. And all reports that need your approval will be listed here. You just have to click on the name of it to open it up. And we'll do an example of that at the end of the demonstration today. And here aren't related, they're travel related, so they won't apply to your logins. Now, create a report. Let's come over here to the Profile section, Profile tab, and select this Personal Information option. We're going to focus on this area right over here that I'm circling, called Expense Settings. I like to refer to this as your expense profile. Some of these options here, you're just going to verify the information is correct. And on a couple of these, you can enter some information in. So we're going to go on the Expense Information section option here. What we'll see is you're going to see what cost center you've been assigned to. And you do need to double check this, because this is the cost center that when you submit your expenses, those cost center that those expenses are going to get charged to, or what budget they're going to come out of. So make sure that your expenses are coming out of the right budget. Now, this is grayed out. I can't change this. If you need this updated, you're going to contact Paul McGeehan, and he can get that updated on your profile. Now, if the right cost center is there, then no action is needed. The next one here is called Expense Delegates. Now, a delegate is somebody who can perform work on behalf of another person. And I'll give you kind of an easy example here. I'm going to use Paul and myself. Say that I'm assigned as Paul's administrative assistant. And Paul has a fairly busy travel schedule or has lots of meetings, so he doesn't always have time to log into the system and reconcile his expenses. So what he can do is he can set me up as his delegate and me to prepare and submit his expense reports for him. An expense approver, you can assign another approver delegate, and they can approve expense reports on your behalf. An example of that would be, let's say you're going to go on vacation. While you're on vacation, you want to make sure that the people who submit their reports to you get those reports approved in a timely manner. And set up another approver, and the person will approve while you're going to be out of the office. Now, you just click the Add button here, and for that person's name. And I'll search for the name Dorsey. The system will find all possible matches. Click on his name you want to add, and check the boxes for the responsibilities you want to delegate to that individual. This instance here, I can allow Kevin Dorsey to prepare and submit report for me. You do check the Receive Emails box here, because you want your delegate to receive those emails that go along with submitting reports. And then both William Never and Kevin Dorsey are approvers. I can Kevin Dorsey to approve on my behalf. And you definitely want to have your approved delegate receive approval emails, because this option here is the notification that gets sent to your approving delegate, letting them know that a report has been submitted that needs your approval. Save. And now I've added William Never has just added Kevin Dorsey as his delegate. If you want who has added you as their delegate, click the Delegate For tab. Kevin Dorsey has added William Never as his delegate, so they've added each other as each other's delegate. Now, a couple of common questions that come up about the delegates. Number one is, can I have more than one delegate on my profile? And the answer is yes. You may have one delegate who prepares and submits reports for you. And if approver, you may have a second delegate who only you allow to approve on your behalf. Commonly asked question is, as a delegate, do I log in with my own login credentials, or do I log in using my delegate's credentials? The answer is you always log in with your own credentials. So then people ask, well then, act as someone's delegate then. So that works. Back here to the main My Concur tab. If been added someone's delegate, up here next to your name, you're going to see where it says you are administering for self. William Never is currently logged in as William Never. When I click the word yourself here, a window appears and it says you are administering for. When you use the drop down, it'll list everybody who's added you as their delegate. And watch I select Kevin Dorsey here. Changes. Okay. And I'm looking at Concur now as if I was Kevin Dorsey. It tells me right here. You can go in and create a report or do some approving. And done, you just go back here, click on the name, and me from the drop down, and then you're back to your own profile. So expense settings here. The option here is called Expense Preferences. The email notifications that you're going to be receiving from the system that keep you up to date with what's going on with your expense reports, when those new company card transactions are available for you to add to expense reports. To be turned on by default. You can see 4 of them here. If you turn them off, it's certainly your choice if you want to no longer receive them. All you do is uncheck the box and click Save. Now, this option here, an expense report is submitted for approval. I highly recommend that those of you that are expense report approvers leave that box checked. That will be your first notification when someone submits an expense report that needs your approval. If you were to come in here and turn this off, you're not notified until 3 days after that report's been sitting in your approval queue. And 3 days could be the difference of someone getting reimbursed on this reimbursement period or the next one. So we make sure that your report's in a timely manner and that you're notified immediately when someone submits a report. This is expense approvers. Have an expense approver listed on their profile. Because Concur is completely electronic, if you have an approver listed here, the system will know who to route your report to for approval, so you won't be able to submit that report. Double check this to make sure that somebody's name is listed there. Where your expense report approver is today should be the same person going forward in Concur. So that should be the name you see here. If it's not, you can contact Paul McGeehan and he'll get that updated for you. Down to favorite attendees. Up here, the attendees option is a way for me to add people to my expense profile that I'm probably going to be taking out for business meals. And the reason I mention that is because in Concur, when you pay for someone else's meal, that is a business meal expense, you're required to add all attendees. For example, if Paul and I were to go out to dinner and paid for his meal, I add that business meal expense and add Paul as an attendee. Be some people that you work with on a regular basis, maybe customers or clients that you're assigned to, and you meet them maybe once a month or once every couple of months. You can add those clients to your list of favorites. So visit them, maybe you take them out to lunch, you add them to a report, you don't have to manually type in their first and last name and their information because it'll be stored here in your list of favorites. You can use this internally. If you are the head of a group or department, You can add your group or department member names here as individuals. You can add fellow employees. And then you can also group people together. You can see here I have 2 people from Concur listed here. If I wanted to group them, I could click Group. Click Add New. I can call it Concur. And the names of the people who should belong to that group. And then see the group. An example of using it for people who are external employees. Okay, I'm going to do it for people internal. I would need to add them first. Employee. So I'll click there. Click the down. You can add business guests, and you can add employees that don't have a Concur profile and fill out their information. Now, how do you add fellow employees who do have Concur profiles? What you do is click this advanced search button here. From the attendee type drop-down, now you have the option to search for employees that have Concur profiles. And if you were just to click search right now, it would just get a list of everybody in the system that has a Concur profile. You can see I have a little list of 3 people here. Or down by entering in their last name or their first name and search that way. Favorite attendees is just a way for you to, ahead of time, add people's names here to your list of favorites. Just select them from the list of favorites when you need to add them to an expense report. And one example of doing a business meal expense and adding some attendees from this list there. And all the way down here to something called mobile registration. Just point out that Concur does have a mobile app that you can download to your iPhone, iPad, Android phone, or your BlackBerry. It's completely free to download. From the screen here, you can see the appropriate icon for the device. You can use your Concur username and login to access the mobile application. So downloaded it. App on your phone. It's going to ask you for your credentials, your username and your password. Enter those in. And when you're in Concur Mobile, basically, I'll keep this pretty short. You can do all your expense reporting right from mobile phone. That includes viewing your corporate card transactions, adding to new or existing reports, taking pictures with your phone of your receipts and attaching that receipt image to expense report or to expense items. You submit your reports, and if you're an approver, you can approve your reports all from your phone now. And I recommend this for people who might travel a lot, because a lot of downtime while you're sitting at the airport waiting for your flight, standing in line at security, riding taxi cabs. You have that time, you log into your phone, and it's easier than having to pull out your computer, boot your computer, and doing it that way. So it's very convenient. When I travel, I use this app all the time. So let's made my Concur screen here, and we're going to expense report and some credit card transactions to it. Now, some of you might be wondering, well, what happens if I pay for something with cash or use a personal credit card for a business expense? Or maybe somebody currently who does not have a corporate card. Maybe you're waiting for it still and one's going to be assigned to you. You can add expenses to a report. We refer to those transactions that you pay for with cash or personal credit card. We call out-of-pocket expenses. I'll try to add those to a report as well. So I'm going to new expense report button to start a new report. It's going to come up here. It's called the header screen, so I need to give the report a name. Okay, this might depend on if you're traveling somewhere, maybe you took a trip. Maybe you're purchasing office supplies. Maybe you want to call it report of office supplies, whatever the case may be. I just have some credit card transactions in the system that were based on if I had taken a business trip. So I'm on a trip to St. Louis, I believe, where my credit card transactions were. If you want the reason you went on this trip or any other comments in here, you're certainly welcome to do that. And then up next. And here on the right-hand side is an area called Smart Expenses. And all of our transactions listed here. The same transactions we saw out on that available card charges section. What this says is it recognizes that you've created a brand new report. You have credit transactions that are not yet assigned to any one expense report. Them available right here. Now, to them to our report, we just simply select them. And we select one. You can select multiple. If you click this top box, it'll select everything. You can select everything you need to here. Then click the button that says Import. And what move those transactions over onto my expense report. See these here. When you import your transactions, you're going to see a couple of things. First, you're probably going to see these red squares that have an exclamation point on them. Those are exceptions. We can see the exception section right here. Each exception, description of what the exception is. Now, you see that we have some that are yellow and some that are red. There's a difference between the red and the yellow. The red exceptions are what we call a hard stop exception. That means that you cannot submit your expense report until you fix whatever the exception is. These exceptions are more of a warning message, and it should try to avoid in the future. But you can still submit an expense report that has a yellow exception on it. Go over the exceptions and see what you need to fix on the actions. Now, this is airfare expense. I'm going to click on it. On a line item, it will tell you what the exception is. Okay? And what's here for the required information is telling me I'm missing a business purpose. Now, when I imported the credit card transaction, I can see that I can see the vendor, a date, and I can see the amount, and I can see the city in there. The credit card company doesn't know what my business purpose for this transaction is, so I'm manually going to have to fill that out by entering over here in the business purpose field. So let's say I took this trip for I had some company meetings, and when I save, you'll see the red exception is now gone. Now, this yellow exception that's telling me that the credit card transaction date here is older than what my company allows. Okay, there might be a place that if it's older than 30 days, you may get this yellow exception, but I can still submit it. And this warning is just to remind me to be more timely in submitting my expenses. That's what warning is. But I can still submit a report with yellow exceptions on it. Now, take a look at one of these other ones here that have a red exception. Let's look at this one that's called Javier's. This is a restaurant, and it's in with an expense type that says undefined. Okay. Notice that Delta Airlines, Enterprise Rental Car, and Marriott, the system recognizes those vendors and knows what expense type to apply to that expense: hotel, car rental, and airfare. But for some vendors, it won't recognize the vendor name, what type of expense it should be. So it will get in as undefined, and all you need to do is click on that line item, define the expense manually by clicking this expense type field drop-down arrow and selecting the right expense type from the list here. So in this case, this might be a meal. It is a meal. And it could be lunch, breakfast, dinner. Let's say it was dinner. We need to put in a business purpose as well, because that is required. And we say that this was an individual dinner. You could say dinner while traveling or something like that. And then save. And now it's updated to dinner. And here's the thing about Concur. Let's say I go back to that restaurant, maybe months down the road. Import that transaction from Javier's. Instead of saying undefined, the system will remember the expense type of dinner for me. Now, some might be saying, okay, well, what if I went there for lunch? Well, you can always click on the line item. You change the expense type for any credit card transaction that comes in. So change it to lunch. You certainly could find lunch on your list here and change it to lunch. So let you know that. So let's face these other exceptions. Now, if you need to delete something off of a report for whatever reason, we can hit the checkbox here to select that item. Let me uncheck one. So this other undefined one here. We'll just click delete. That will transaction from off of your report, not delete it out of the system. We're missing for the car rental. We have a red exception. Probably tell me I'm missing a business purpose. Pretty much missing business purpose. Any meetings. Now the hotel for last for a reason. I hide the exceptions here. I'm going to give myself a little bit more room to work with. Hotel has a requirement that other expenses do not, which is itemization. If my total hotel bill is $745, I need to break down that $745 and say how I spent that money. And so some of the things I'm going to include are my room rate and my room tax, included in my itemizations. I may have room service, maybe internet charge, maybe the hotel charged me for parking my rental car on site. Maybe I had a restaurant in the hotel lobby and I charged a meal from that restaurant to my room. Movie, mini bar, laundry service. There's various things that can appear on your bill. I need to tell the system what is my bill. So what I do is click on the hotel item here, enter my purpose, and I'm going to itemize this button here. And it be taken to is my nightly lodging expense tab. Now, checkout date is already pre-populated here. It's based on the credit card transaction date we see here. Those dates will usually match up, but if they don't, just click this little calendar icon. Date. And if it doesn't match up, it's probably going to be only about 1 day difference there. But the actual checkout date that credit card transaction was processed. In a number of nights here, I'm going to skip check-in date. I'm going to show you why. When I check out date in a number of nights, the system will auto-populate my check-in date for me. So when I click in the room rate field, my check gets populated here. My check-in date, check-out date, number of nights. Now I'm going to go to the section that says recurring charges each night. So this charge that's going to appear on my bill each night, recurring meaning it's the same amount each night. The examples of that are room rate and room tax. So let's enter in my room rate, which should be $175 per night. 3 different room tax fields where I can enter in 3 different room taxes, or add all my room tax for one night together, and it is one total. Now add my room tax together, and it is one total. And the reason I do that is because the system's going to look at these 3 fields and them together anyway. So maybe room tax was one night was $25. Now your system is set up. It's going to combine your room rate and your room tax together as a single item. Doing that, I could then combine my room rate and my room tax together. And in this, I could end $175 for room rate, $5 for room tax. I can use one total here because this is going to add it up together anyway. So, to want to do it, the system doesn't care how you account for this money, this here, as long as you're accounting for all of it. I keep mine separate. Now, you're probably wondering how for a hotel stay where maybe the room rate changed one of the nights. Maybe you had a 3-night stay, and on the last night they charged you $185 in room rate and $3 in room tax. I'll show you adjust in just a moment. In that instance, is room rate and room tax you were charged a majority of the nights of your stay. So let's look at my 3-night example here. So the 2 nights I was charged $175 for room rate, $25 for room tax. Then on the 3rd night I was charged $185 in room rate, $30 in room tax. I enter $175 and $25 because that was the charge I was charged a majority of the nights. Here I'm going to enter any other additional recurring charges the hotel may have charged me. So look at your bill, and if there was something that you see on your bill each night in the same amount each night, you're going to add into these two fields. For example, say that charge me $10 a night for parking my rental car on site. What I'll do is click the expense type drop down, and you can see if there's a parking expense type. Now, you don't want to scroll all the way down. Starting the word park and a match, if there is one, a list of expenses. So there's an expense. Enter they charged you per night. So $1 per night charge. And if you're recurring charge, you could enter it by this expense field and this amount field. Right now, I have 3 nights. I have a room tax and a parking charge. I'm going to save this. And remember, my room rate and room tax are going to be added together. So I'm going to click save. And you get all my itemizations here for each night and park each night. And because I had one room, one night, or one of the nights, higher rate, once saved and have these itemizations here, I click on the night that had the higher room rate, the amount manually here. If it was an additional $10 in room rate, additional $5 in room tax, that would make my total for that night $215. Click save. And it's my expense right here. And you can really adjust the amounts of any one of these itemizations. Now, recurring charges. What about charges that are only appear on my bill once? Maybe room service, maybe laundry, movie, maybe a meal down at the restaurant that was in the lobby of the hotel, and I charge that to my room. Account for those. We call those one-time charges. Now, I've added up my itemization so far, which equals $645. My total $745, so I have dollars left to account for. I must match my itemized amount with my total for this red exception to go away. So I'm going to click the drop down here and enter expense. Several different things. Maybe you have local telephone calls, maybe you had a movie expense or minibar charge or whatever the case may be. Let's see if we type in the word movie, we don't match it there. If there's something for maybe miscellaneous expense. Sometimes people will ask me and they'll say, well, what if an expense, find an expense type for it? Well, that just miscellaneous would come into play. So we'll select miscellaneous. Check your transaction date. Because this is a one-time charge, we need to put in the right date that this charge appears on our bill, because this transaction date, copying from this transaction date here. Use the calendar. Select date from the calendar. Enter amount, all $10. Now, miscellaneous doesn't really tell me too much. But what I can do is in the payment field, enter an explanation of what this expense is. And call it in-room movie, for an example. Now, once you're that, now I need to determine, is this expense, an in-room movie, something that I'm allowed to be reimbursed for on a corporate credit card? And if that is no, you will need to check this box that says it's a personal expense. Do not reimburse. I'm doing it in my itemizations because I must match my itemized amount with my total. If I can account for this $10, then I would be left $10 short of this amount here. But you hear that this expense, this is the comment I entered that tells me it's an in-room movie. This icon says it's personal. No requested reimbursement amount is 0. I'm requesting any amount here. By accounting for it in my itemizations, so my itemized amount will match my total. So dollars left to itemize. So this last example, say that we after we customers or clients, and we said, hey, meet me at my hotel. I'm going to take you out to dinner. There's a pretty nice restaurant in the hotel lobby. We charge that meal, that business meal expense to your which gets charged to your corporate card. So we're going to have business meal expense. So I'm going to click the drop down here, and down under meals and entertainment, we do have one called business meal with attendees. Again, a transaction date here. Make sure date that this meal was charged to the room. Update your business purpose to now say maybe a client dinner. Then as look down here, there's a section called attendees other than yourself, because your name will automatically be listed here. It is marked with red, which means it's required. I need to now add some attendees to this meal. Now, the people that attended the meal are people added to that list of favorites we talked about earlier. You can add that list by clicking the favorites button. Favorite that I have. Access any groups that I've created. So I can add multiple people at one time. I want to add the entire Concur group, so I click on the Concur group name and add to expense by clicking add to expense. And then they're added right back behind here. And note the system, the total amount of the expense equally between all attendees. Now, if somebody attended the meal that is not in your list of favorites, maybe you just met somebody, well, they'll see either a new attendee button. If you don't see a new attendee button, look for this button with two right-pointing arrows. Click on that, and you can add a new attendee. Manually here. Are they a business guest, an employee that doesn't have a Concur profile, or you can even do a spouse? We'll just do a business guest. Out their information. Now, the piece of information that's required is last name. You might want to fill out more than just their last name. So one of my coworkers. Enter information and click save. See, Brenna Callan's been added as an attendee to my meal. And what Concur will do is now add Brenna Callan to my list of favorites. So the next time she attends a meal with me, I'll find her from my favorites list. Once you've added attendees, click save. That's my last $90 here. So my reduction for the hotel should go away. Here's the business meal expense. The white icon says it has attendees. Attendees there. So we deal with our credit card transactions and fix any red exceptions. Now, what are transactions that I paid for with or personal credit card? Remember, I called those out-of-pocket transactions. Now, add out-of-pocket transactions to the same report that has credit card transactions. I can do that. I can mix them together. Somebody who does not have a corporate card for some reason, don't have a corporate card yet, you're going to be adding all of your expenses as out-of-pocket. So, example of a taxi expense. So I'm going to here and see if I have an type called taxi, which I should have one under transportation. All I do to add it to my report is select the expense type by clicking on it. All that will appear. Notice that the transaction date copied from the last transaction I worked with on the report, no matter whether it was a corporate card or if it was another out-of-pocket. So always check your date. What was my purpose? I might say taxi to airport. Payment is cash. That also refers to personal credit card. And then any amount. That. Add a taxi expense to my report as an out-of-pocket. Now, I do use the taxi as an example for something. There may be you that might travel to other countries. And if you're paying cash in another country, can actually convert the full currency back to US dollars, so you can see what the amount will be in US dollars. And you do that is you have this little currency button drop down here, the appropriate currency from the drop down list. So let's say we were doing Hong Kong. I change currency. It puts the exchange rate of Hong Kong dollars to US dollars based on the date I've selected for my transaction date. If I would have spent 40 Hong Kong dollars, that converts $5.16. Now something a bit more appropriate might be maybe 200 Hong Kong dollars, and then the taxi ride would be $25.78. You'd be saying, okay, well, I flew into Hong Kong, and I exchanged my money at the airport, and they have a different exchange rate than what Concur is showing me here. This rate can be modified up to, it's a variance of maybe 2 to 3% is all, not too high, but we had an exchange rate of 0.131. Update it, and that it does the amount here. Okay, I'll show you that you can have them convert from foreign currencies into US dollars. Now, for those of you that are corporate card users, if you use your corporate card in another country, it will be converted for you. And in fact, when you import that card transaction, you see the foreign amount and the US dollar amount. If your personal credit card in another country, wait for that amount to appear on your bank statement because the bank will convert it. Now, it may include or may come with it, there may be a foreign transaction fee, personal credit card. And what you do, if that does happen, you could add the foreign transaction fee to the amount. Okay, so it was another 80 cents. So this would make that a total of 27. In field here, what you could say foreign transaction fee. So you know that you did a little bit to that amount there. Because when you provide the receipt for this expense, your might show an amount. So you want to just give an explanation as to why, because you added the foreign transaction fee. So we'll update that expense, and then we see the foreign amount and the US dollar amount. Now, do one other out-of-pocket transaction here. Because any out-of-pocket transaction, we did taxi was our example, but to an out-of-pocket transaction, this is pretty much the same. You find the expense type from your list, click on it, fill those red required fields, and save. So once you know how to do one expense type, you can do any expense type. Just follow those red required fields. Now, the other expense type that you're reimbursed for, and we term it as an out-of-pocket expense, you're not actually spending any money, but you're reimbursed for it, and that's for your personal car mileage. So I'm going to type mileage here, and we have car mileage as an expense type. So I'm going to say that. Again, your date. Okay, make this a little bit later in March here. This purpose, maybe you had clients, that's why you drove a car. From and the to locations are required, and these are free-form fields. I can type city names, I can type addresses, I could say from home to air, for example. As you need to in there. And you know the distance that you traveled, because on your odometer, you can enter mileage in here manually. Now, so we forget to check our odometer, and maybe several stops in one day. We didn't check our starting odometer reading, sure on how far we traveled. Well, what you do, I'm going to delete these out of here. Use mileage calculator option. So up a window, mileage calculator window. And on the side, you're going to see a map. And you can drag that map. Inside, you have a section called waypoints. The where you enter in the city names or addresses. So in waypoint A, you're going to put where you started. Waypoint B is where you ended up. You have multiple waypoints in here. So for example, I'm going to use St. Louis, Missouri as my example. St. Louis, MO, and then I went to Kansas city. Press E once you've typed in the city name, and it's that distance and most direct route on the map. Looks like it's a straight shot here. 247.4 miles. And then from Kansas City to another city, and I'll just pick one off the map here. I'll say Joplin, Missouri. Type in, hit the tab. Okay, 157.7 miles down there. But you see how this works. Putting city name or address, it'll your distance for you. If your trip a round trip, so I go back to St. Louis, you click make round trip. Another 205.4 miles back to St. Louis. Now, I use city names here as an example. You enter in addresses if you can, because that will give you a more accurate mileage reading here. You need to deduct your commute. If you're not allowed to be reimbursed for your commute, you click the deduct commute checkbox here, and home address and your office address, okay? And your distance here, and subtract it from the total. Mileage to expense here. So it does here. It puts in my from and my to location based on where I started and my last point and my total distance. Reimbursement mileage rate is up here under the view reimbursement rates, 56.5 cents per mile. Next. Car mileage expense on my report. Now, I showed you in the expense settings that it showed me what cost center I belong to. The instances where you might need to charge something to another cost center, or maybe split a cost between two cost centers. Maybe fair. Maybe you were taking a business trip and you did some work for another department. And you know what? We'll cover half your airfare for doing this for us. Well, we do option. If you go to details drop down here, it's called allocations. And what we need to do is I can charge something to another cost center or split it between cost centers. So let's use the airfare as an example. Now you have a single item or multiple items, but the are the same for allocating no matter how many you've selected. We'll just allocate selected expenses, and your default cost center will be listed here. If you cost center field, you'll see a list of all your cost centers. So just make a selection. Okay, and the MO number if needed here. I don't think that's required though, but mostly just cost center. If you need to split it between two cost centers, click the Add New Allocation button, and enter default cost center in here and split it 50-50. And split it by amount. However you do that, and you can twice times, 4 times, as many times as you need to. And once here, and you click Save. Okay. And click Done. And then this is the allocations button here. And over it shows you how it's been allocated between two cost centers. Last here, we have this gray and white colored icon next to most of our expenses here. But a receipt is required for that expense. Now, there are a couple different ways to attach receipts, and there's a few methods. Now, I talked about earlier when I mentioned Concur Mobile, you do have the ability to take pictures with your mobile phone and take a picture from your phone's photo library and attach it to an expense using the Concur Mobile application. That's a really easy way for me to attach my receipts. Some may not have the ability to take pictures with your phone, and some of you may opt to take your receipts and scan them into image files. Okay, it's absolutely fine. Whatever method you decide works best for you, okay, use that method. And you combine some of these methods as well. Now, if your receipts to a scanner and you scan them into receipt images, image files, save it from the scanner onto your computer somehow. Scanners nowadays have an email function, so you can say, send this newly scanned image to the following email address. You'll end up emailing it to yourself. So then you'll go to your email inbox, you'll email, it'll have an attachment of an image file, set image file on your computer somewhere. So if scanned images, you're going to click the receipts drop down to attach receipt images. The receipt upload and attach window shows me all those require a receipt. Two options from here, and you can choose which option you like better. You can select a line item and a single receipt to a line item. Attach your images to the report at level, not any single line item, but to the report as a whole. I realize that probably some of you are going to your receipts and scan them into a PDF document. It might be 2 or 3 pages of receipts, but it's one document, it's one file. That's absolutely fine. You can do that. That one you'd want to attach at the report level. Now, 5 formats that are allowed in Concur: PNG, JPEG, PDF, HTML, or TIFF. As long as the image file is no larger than 5 megabytes. Those of you that might scan multiple receipts into one PDF document, and that PDF document might have multiple pages, just make sure that the entire file size is not larger than 5 megabytes. If it is, you have to split it, okay, and do 2 different PDF images. Now, if you watch at the line item level, I'll show you really quickly. You select the line item and click Browse. If you like this method, some of you may choose to use the other method. You just navigate to where that receipt image is, select it, click Open, and then Upload. And then the airfare, you can see that the gray icon is turned green with a check mark back here. Now, attach your receipts at the report level. Don't select any line item. Click. You can find image files. So there's a PDF. Open. Now, instead of clicking Upload, I'm going to repeat those steps for any other images I need to attach, because Concur, and using this method, Concur allows me to attach up to 10 receipt images at one time. So there's one for rental. Open. Click Brand. I can do some meal expenses. Open. Keep attaching receipts here until I have 10. And one time. Now, if I have more than 10 receipt images, I'll have to attach them in increments of 10. I'll just use these 3 as an example. And now upload, and all 3 of those receipts will be attached to the report. Here in just a second, it should say attached. There they go. Then I can just close. Into receipt images, if I attach it at the line item level, just mouse over the little green check mark. There's the receipt. To view the receipts I attach at the report level, I have the Check Receipts option. And this will open a brand new window, open a PDF viewer, and it'll combine all of those receipt images into one PDF document here. You can see by scrolling down, you can view. So you want to view them and make sure that everything's legible, that you can see receipt details. Okay? Which expenses will require receipts? Any expense that's greater than $25 will require a receipt, and that's according to your company policy. One last method I want to show you for receipts, and so you may like this method. This method is called the Receipt Store. What it allows for you to do is to take those image files that you have and email them to Concur. Concur will store them for you. If you're somebody who's using a scanner and scanning them and saving them on your computer, this is probably the method for you. This Receipt Store method is probably better used for those of you that have a mobile phone that takes pictures, that also has email capability, that you can take a picture of your receipt, email from your phone to the Concur receipt store, and then it's stored for you. If you would use that option, what you from your expense report, click Receipt Store button. And you need to verify the email addresses that you're going to be sending those receipt images from. Okay? Now, your work email address will be listed here by default, and you can submit 2 additional emails, personal emails. Each one to be submitted and verified separately, though. Now, personally, I did my Concur email address, then my Hotmail and my Gmail. So I have my Hotmail and Gmail accounts set up on my iPhone, and I use to email from my iPhone. So what I do is I'll go out to dinner, take a picture of my receipt when I finish that meal, and immediately attach that image to an email and send it from my phone, email it from my phone to the receipt store. And it'll be sitting in the receipt store for me. Verify your email address. Enter an email field, click the submit link here. You will receive an email at the email address listed here within about 2 or 3 seconds. That email will have a code number in it. You're going to take that code number, put it into this code field here, and click verify. And it'll be instant verification. You'll actually see a message appear in the middle of your screen that your email has been verified. You now start emailing your receipt images to, and it'll be inbox. And that inbox is inbox@concursolutions.com. I'm going to type this in the chat window here. Give me just a second. And everybody can see it. So it's inbox@concursolutions.com. I've also given Paul reference to a mobile, not a mobile demo, but a demo for the receipt store, where you can go in and watch and show, and it kind of takes you through the steps of how to set up the receipt store, and actually then show you that inbox email alias again. So you can see it right in that demo. So he'll be providing that to you if you, as a training reference. Now, once I've emailed the receipt image to the receipt store, to this gallery here. Okay, gallery shows me all the receipt images that I've emailed in. And to attach a receipt image to a line item, I just click, drag, drop it onto the line item. And this is why people like this method, is because they can immediately email their receipts as soon as they receive them to the receipt store. They don't have to have an expense report created. And the store will store the receipt images until they're ready to use them. And as simple as clicking and dragging and dropping those images onto the expense report here. Another method. You have different methods that you can use. You can scan your receipts and attach them to line item or to the report. You can multiple receipts into one image or one PDF file. That's absolutely fine. You can set up the receipt store and email your receipts into the receipt store and then drag and drop them onto your report. Attached all receipts. I'm ready to submit my report. So I just click the Submit Report button here. Gives me my review window. Just sure that you've attached all proper receipts. That's what that's reminding you of here. And then Submit Report. It says report was submitted successfully to my approver. Shows me my report total, $1,708.58. 10 marked as personal, so I'm claiming $1,698.58. The amount that's due to the corporate credit card, that's the amount due to the employee for out-of-pocket expenses. I close. And I see there's my report here. Okay. Now, submitted and pending approval, so it's waiting for my manager. My manager will have received an email notification. Before I log in as a manager, I want to show you something. Some may be interested in going back and viewing reports that have been reimbursed, or you want to go back and see past reports. So you can, from this active report screen here, and you can access the active report screen by mousing over the expense tab and selecting the view reports option. And screen, what you'll do is click the view drop down, and now you have all these choices of reports. Report recent, pending, approved, already been processed or paid, all reports, reports for this month, for last month, this quarter, last quarter. So you use those options to go back and view reports. So I want that. Now log out really quickly, and I'm going to add as an approver so we can see what it looks like from the approver standpoint. Now, as approver, I would be notified that a report's been submitted that needs my approval. So log into the system. I'm in the approval queue section, and there's the St. Louis report submitted by William Never. So I click on the name of the report. And in here, the report is going to open up. Exactly like it did when we created it. Okay, click Hide Exceptions here. So all the expense line items, I can see allocations, any attached at the line item level, by mouse over the green check mark. Accommodations of the hotel by expanding them by clicking the little arrow here. And I see the business meal attendees, personal expense, and what by mousing over the comment says in-room movie. See all the expenses and the amounts listed here. Double check to see if there's any receipts attached at the report level. I can receipts drop down and select the option to view receipts in new window. Here. Check each line item. Okay, I'm here on the demonstration, but you should check and click on each line item so that the receipt amount matches with the amount that they is for reimbursement on the report. If everything matches up and everything looks good and you want to approve the report, you simply click Approve. Now, you can pop in about how do they know if they've had something allocated to another cost center. Well, as an approver, it's going to be your responsibility that if you see that there's an allocation here, you're going to need to look at the cost center that's allocated to, the other cost center, and the option to then approve the report and send it to who the approver of that other cost center is by using the Approve and Forward button here. I've done it just to show you what it looks like. What is in this User Added Approver field, if you click in it, you can search for approvers by their last, first name, email address, or login. So you would do last name is the easiest, and then that person's last name, the system will find their name. You click on their name, then you click Approve Forward. It'll give it your approval. Then it will send it to that other approver so that they can review it as well. Okay. Now, if you're looking at an expense report and you notice that the amount of a transaction doesn't match the receipt, or maybe want more information about an expense line item, instead of approving the report, you can send back an entire report. If there's only one expense that needs to be sent back, you can send back a single expense. See how I have the airfare selected? Each item I click on, I will option to send back that individual expense. Okay, actually, we can do that for, let's do that for the taxi expense. Click send back expense. You save that. And approve the rest of the report by clicking Approve, and it'll approve all the other items, but it'll back that single taxi expense. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to click Approve, and then a taxi expense listed here, and I have to put in a comment why I'm entering that. Say that please provide receipt, or provide original receipt. So what needs to be corrected. So then I click OK. Okay. And because we don't have another approver in this system right now set up for go to, it's not going to next step, next approval process. Okay. I'll show you that normally it would say approve, and then it would go to the next step. To do this, we'll just click send back to employee, send back the entire report, and just please provide all original receipts. Please provide of all receipts, because we're going to be scanning them into image files. We're not dealing with paper receipts. They're all going to be in image file format. So when I click OK, send back the entire expense report here. It says it was to the employee. The employee gets notified immediately. Again, and they can go in and make corrections. So let's log in as William Never. That report looks like when it's been sent back. Okay, trip to St. Louis. The news is sent back to employee. This amount entered by the approver. Please provide copies of all original receipts. This has been sent back. I found the name of the report to open it up and make the corrections. A little note here from Paul that want to make sure I mention that alter only pay approved reports. Okay, reports to be approved. So, and I'm not sure what OS stands for here, but I think you probably understand that. So it says the bill OS and approved. And if fees are incurred for expense reports that pass the month due, will be the holder's responsibility. So if you're not only in submitting your expense reports and your expenses here, any late fees on your corporate credit card, they'll be your responsibility. The company will not pay those. Okay? And the company will only pay approved reports. So it has to be approved first. You can't just say, well, I have $2,000 worth of expenses. I haven't a report yet, but I need to be reimbursed. You cannot be reimbursed or paid until that report has been submitted and approved. So we have some other questions in here. So let me read those out loud. And those questions. Well, if you want to unmute your phone, because you might have to help me out on some of these if they're more alter specific, you can press #6. Okay? So, first question. Can a delegate be someone who does not have a credit card? Absolutely. Okay? As long as they have a Concur profile, they can be a delegate. Question, Donna. If you buy breakfast for a safety meeting for a whole yard, which could be 40 employees, how do you document that? Maybe something where you might be out here if they don't have to enter all 40 people.
No, you have to put out just say that indicate that it was a yard meeting, safety meeting for the Waterloo yard, something like that's going to be fine.
And you might just put the number of attendees, like 20 people attended or 50 people attended, something simple like that.
She's Donna's probably wondering, okay, would she enter that when she's entering in the attendee information? I would probably say, let's click business meal. I would probably say what I do, I guess, in that is if I was adding a new attendee.
Create one.
Yeah, create it based on that yard name. Now, you probably have to be a little creative here because even though it's not technically a business guest, you're as an employee not using Concur, but you could put it or that if you wanted to and put like the yard name and maybe how many people attended. So that's what you could do.
I'm sorry? You could choose the group.
Here. So if we're buying lunch, okay, so Don's kind of following up with that. So if we're buying lunch for the employees site, I have to add all their names to a group. If it's a really, okay, we kind of answered that question there. If it was a large group, like 40 or so, kind of put them under what we just showed you here. If it's not too large of a group, then you should add everybody that you paid for. Okay, so Don's asking, why are you adding credit card charges to an expense report? Well, to get reimbursed for those credit card charges, I need to enter them through an expense report. Others, how do I receive the money to pay off my corporate card? So I'm adding them to a report. And as I just mentioned, only approved expenses will be reimbursed. The only way they can be approved is if you submit them on an expense report. So that's why I'm adding those card charges to a report. As rental car gas charged by the rental car company, how we itemize the rental car company receipt. You're not required to. And you could probably enter that gas charge as a separate expense. Let me see if there is a gasoline expense type here. There may be. Click expense here. And let's see if we have gas. Yeah, you enter that as gas. Okay. Now, Rick, if you're saying that you prepaid the gas for the rental car, that's going to appear on your rental car receipt and be part of the entire charge that shows up on your corp card anyway. So let's say your rental car for the car was $150. You prepaid $45 in gas. Your total charge is going to be $195 on your corporate card. And if you're bringing it as an out-of-pocket expense, just take the amount that you were totally charged, which you'll see on the receipt anyway. So itemize it out. And let's see. Don was asking, how do we know if someone charges a charge to our cost center? That's going to have to be the person who approved the report originally. We'll need to forward it to you, a cost center approver. So they need to make sure that they do that. Keep that in mind, approvers. If there's an allocation here, make sure you approve and forward to that other cost center approver. I think from Anna says, I guess the subject line is the description of the receipt. And I'm not sure what you mean by the subject line there, Andy. If you're on call, Andy, can you press #6 and unmute your phone and maybe explain what you're referring to there?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, I got people in the building asking me stuff. If you've expense, or if you're emailing a receipt, I guess the subject line could be dinner with somebody.
Emailing
the subject line. Yeah, going into the store.
Oh, yeah, a receipt subject line is not required anyway. All the store is looking at is for the attachment to that email.
I know you go into the receipt store, descriptions in there. Where does it come from?
That comes the file name that you name the file. So like if I saved an air receipt on my computer and I named it airreceipt.jpg, that's what they name.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Okay, great. So, your question says, what if you submit your expense report on time and the approver is late in approving? Who is responsible for the charges? Well, luckily, there's a couple of things in place, Lisa. There's kind of a safety net. For one, your approver gets reminded after 3 days if they don't approve it. After 7 days, the expense report escalates automatically to the next approver. Okay? You shouldn't have to worry about if you're submitting them on time, you should be reimbursed on time, even if your approver takes a couple of days to approve it. But there's a safety net in place. We'll automatically escalate to another approver if the approver doesn't. Donna says, for Paul, if we currently have our reimbursement direct deposited, do we need to refill out the sheet sent by corporate?
You don't have any personal or late fee.
Can you guys hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're not. I have that information.
Perfect. That's all the questions I have typed in here. Oh, we have another one from Chris just came in. Why did the statements come to our house?
You do your transactions, make sure that everything that's on there is accurate, so from integrity standpoint and also validity.
Individuals also go in and elect to change. And they selected all of the statements to get mailed to people's houses, but in your profile, you can change it if you'd rather get an electronic statement or if you'd like to turn off that option. So that was a carte blanche template that we needed to set up initially, but within your profile information, you're going to be able to change that, or go call to change it.
Okay,
so
great.
Your company expenses, you can work with Paul to get it changed if you don't want those mailed to your house.
Any other questions? If you would like to unmute your phone, you can press #6 to ask your question over the phone. I'll have a few seconds here to see if anybody unmutes and asks it over the phone. is silence, then I'll assume that there's no more questions, and then we can end the call. So I'll just wait here just for a moment. Pound 6 on your keypad will unmute your phone. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Paul, I feel really bad for you right now.
Hold on, we had a question here.
Okay. Earlier you showed that we could delete an invoice and it would be removed from the report but not deleted from the system.
Uh-huh.
Will this show back up the next time we try to get in? And
when you click the, if I was to even click the import button directly, there's that one right here I'm circling that I deleted off of the report. It's still there available for you. So yes, you will see it.
Okay,
yep.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? I think the silence is no more questions.